Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host Gershwin and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about the Great Crusade as we answer the question of how the Emperor punished those nations or those empires that joined the Imperium of Man but then betrayed the Emperor once the Great Crusade passed on. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day. If you guys have any questions or any suggestions, please comment down below. Now, we have a huge library of lore videos, so if you're not too sure what the Great Crusade is, if you want more information on the Emperor or anything that you might think up right now, we probably have a video for you, so check that out. 40 facts on Great Crusade, 40 facts on the Emperor, we have it all for you. If you enjoy our content, thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the castigations of empires. During the early years of the Great Crusade, alliances and oaths were still fresh, untested, and half-formed. Even as the Imperium extended beyond the Sol system, the domains left in its wake were often of questionable stability and loyalty. Attempted rebellions and conspiracies were common, but the Imperium usually put most of these insurrections down swiftly and without fanfare. However, occasionally a few rebellions required a different response, not simply subjugation, but retribution. Venori was a naturally fortified Terran city enclave built into the walls of a series of chasms that had once been part of the Pan-Pacific Empire. Venori had been one of the last of the tyrant Narthan Doom's domains to fall under the War of Unification. The people of Venori did not take easy to the imperial yoke, as they submitted to the Emperor's rule in reluctant silence. This changed, however, with the coming of the Crimson Walkers, a cabal of psychers, gene splicers, and warlords who had once served the last great Terran tyrants of the Age of Strife. Bit by bit, they gathered followers and resources, spreading a secret web across Terra. The center of this resurgence was Venori. It seemed the Crimson Walkers were determined to pull a part of Terra back into the nightmare of the recent past. When the Emperor heard of the rise of this reborn threat, he is said to have spoken 3 words: "Send the Eighth." The Eighth Legion, which would later become the Night Lords, did not respond right away, as its force within the Sol system at that time only numbered a little more than 500 warriors, a large force of Astartes, but not one that could overwhelm a city of millions. When the 8th Legion began their campaign of fear, it started with an orbital bombardment falling from the night sky, which lasted for 6 solar hours. Following the bombardment, the artificial darkness remained. Soon a heavy downpour, thick with chemicals, rained upon the millions of fearful inhabitants from the seeded clouds above. The 8th Legion arose from the abyss on jets of flame, butchering any who crossed their path. The screams of terror and battle echoed through their drug-weakened minds. The Crimson Walkers responded by unleashing an army of mutant monstrosities, but still the 8th Legion came on, slicing abominations apart with lightning-sheathed claws. They screamed with the voice of the dead as they fought, their speaker grills shouting out the recorded sounds of suffering, pain, and loss. When the chasms were blazing like the mouth of the mythical hell, the drop pods fell. The reinforcement converged on the chasm, cutting their way through the city sprawl, killing any they found. Soon, the remaining Crimson Walkers faced their doom fragmented, harrowed, and cut off from one another, until they were cornered by the figures in midnight-clad blue power armor. Those who reached the blasted borders surrounding the city found themselves hunted by the 8th Legion's seeker squads. It is said that the 8th Legion allowed many to run before hunting them down through the long hours of artificial night, maiming but never killing, until dragging their broken quarry back to the chasm. With Venori screaming and burning, the 8th Legion performed their last duty. Alive and healed so that they were conscious, they threw the Crimson Walkers into the chasm. Then they detonated charges along the cliff edge, severing the hanging city from the cliff face. The screams of 10 millions who had sheltered from the fighting in the cliff-bound buildings reached up to the sky as they followed the Crimson Walkers into the black depths of the earth. The 8th Legion left the decimated city before the dawn came again, cementing their reputation for the use of fear and terror as effective weapons of imperial retribution and control. When the forces of the Great Crusade first entered the Ordani cluster, they encountered the formidable warlord Viteo Garan Terentius. Observing the forces arrayed against him, Terentius was forced to take the path of survival and surrender to the Imperium. The Imperium had need of men like Terentius, and the Great Crusade gave him the opportunities and riches such that he had never dreamed before. Given a small fleet of warships and a handful of Imperial army regiments, Terentius grew his forces by conquest. For 5 decades he rose in power and reputation, conquering worlds around the Halo stars in the name of the Emperor. At the height of his power, he had the ear of Malcador the Sigillite and the military respect of several Primarchs. When he finally turned against the Imperium, many were shocked. Terentius began to conquer already compliant planets, his contra-crusade conquering system after system in his own name, rather than for the sake of all mankind. Soon he had an entire fleet of warships, tens of millions of soldiers, and the loyalty of 100 human-settled worlds. Ringed by fortress worlds, his rebel human empire began to eat up Imperial worlds around the Halo stars. The Imperium responded by sending Horus and his Luna Wolf's Legion to not only break the renegade, but to demonstrate to any other who had harbored similar ideas within the Imperial forces the certainty of a betrayer's defeat. Horus elected not only to use his legion to complete the task at hand, but to send personal requests to his brother Primarchs for support, which saw substantial strengths from the Night Lords, the Iron Hands, and the Alpha Legion, who joined the might of the Luna Wolves. Soon the rebel forces were fragmented, driven by tales of cold worlds. It is said that it was at the very moment that Terentius realized he could not win, the Luna Wolves came for him. They dropped from the warp within weapons range of Terentius' warships, and they annihilated half of his command fleet in one fell swoop. Horus himself teleported onto the bridge of Terentius' flagship, along with 50 of the Luna Wolves' First Company elite, Justerian Terminators, and slaughtered all they found there. Terentius died unrepentant, ending his life impaled upon Horus's talon. With Terentius dead, his rebellion crumbled as the castigation continued with renewed fury. Horus, his pride slighted by Terentius' decision to betray the trust the Primarchs and the Emperor had once put in him, is said to have ordered the Night Lords to decimate every world within Terentius' rebel empire. The power of the Iron Hands and the elements of the Ordo Reductor were brought to bear on every structure on Terentius' bastion world. Soon the rebels of his realm were slaughtered, their cities smashed to dust, and their homeworld's very air laced with toxins. Once the castigation was complete, Horus sent the gold-dipped skull of Terentius to Terra, with the iconic warning carried in the lips of the messenger who bore it: "So perish all traitors." And those were 40 facts on the castigation of the empires during the Great Crusade. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with your friends and thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of our patrons that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. It's $1 a month. It goes a long way. If you guys are uncomfortable with using Patreon, there are more links down in the description below to find out how you guys can support us and get some cool stuff back. So check out the links down in the description. If not, just simply by liking, commenting, sharing, it helps out the channel. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this Great Crusade video. We normally don't talk about the Great Crusade, and I hope you guys enjoyed the opportunity that I had to showcase the John Blanche art that is unique to Warhammer 40K. For all those that don't know, a lot of the images, or pretty much most of these images, come from an artist by the name of John Blanche, who influenced Warhammer 40K and the grim darkness, the gothic like darkness that encompasses the lore and the art of Warhammer 40K. It's because of his paintings, it's because of his art that Warhammer 40K has that cool, like, gothic, grimdark feel. So much so that it has inspired the Blanchitsu style. We've talked about that before, but basically it's just a way of painting and a way of sculpting that is reminiscent of the art of John Blanche. So if you don't know who John Blanche is, maybe we'll create a 40 facts on John Blanche in the near future. Comment down below if you guys would like that. But it's just it's a form of art that is inspired or it's a form of the hobby that is inspired by his art. Google him, John Blanche, and you will find out how influential and how awesome his art is. It takes a little bit to get used to. I know when I first started when I was a kid, the art was a little too much for me, but now as an adult, you really appreciate the style and the very unique style, I would say. If you guys have suggestions for other topics of Warhammer 40K, or if you guys have any other questions, please comment down below. And yeah, thanks for everything, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.